Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music. Mike and Marty on the beat. Mike and Marty. Mike and Marty.
Hello, welcome Bellows Falls. This is The Feed with Mike and Marty. We're March 30th. We always get surprised when we start, but it's good to be
We
here.
do sometimes, yeah.
Today we're going to be talking with Gary Fox. He's going to tell us about projects that are happening downtown and the ARPA funding and all sorts of good updates. So welcome, Gary. But first, on our last show in March,
I
we're going to have local events.
And March is going out like a lion
It
instead of a
is.
lamb. It has been cold and windy. So classic film this week is The Never-Ending Story. It's sponsored by the Walpole Savings Bank, and it's free admission. So that's
nice.
pretty cool. So if you're looking to do something interesting tonight, go to The Never-Ending Story at the Opera House. And then coming to the Opera House at the end of the month is David Stern's new production, Into the Woods. It's Wild Goose Players in collaboration with Next Stage, and like I said, directed by David Stern. It's April 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, April 29th, 30th, and May 1st. And if you want to buy tickets, you can go to the Bellows Falls Opera House website and click on special events, and it's super easy. They have a really, really user-friendly website now, and you can buy your tickets. Greater Falls Regional Chamber of Commerce is having their annual dinner, so things are starting to happen. We're starting to
it's
have
neat.
in-person
Spring is
events.
springing.
And this year, instead of doing a Person of the Year, they're doing what they call Community Superheroes. And actually, next week we'll have Deb Collier and Kathleen Gavatsky on to talk a little bit more about that. But mark your calendar for Thursday, April 28th at 5:30, and it'll be at the Bellows Falls Country Club.
Great.
Who actually they have a restaurant now, so they're going to Par 13. That's just a little
Yeah, I
extra,
saw that.
throwing that out, because they were looking for a restaurant. They weren't sure if they were going to
Who's
have one.
doing it? I saw
It
read
is
it, but I
George
forgot.
Kendall and Brian Joy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And we were asked to give a shout out about a new theater troupe in town called the Terrace Players. Two local authors, Eileen Charbonneau and Bill Lockwood, are two of the premier people in the Terrace Players, and they're going to be presenting readings from their novels because they're both authors. They're going to be presenting readings for their novels at the Flatiron Cafe on Friday, April 8th at 6 p.m. And they're going to bring in the rest of the Terrace Players, which will include Eileen's husband, Ed Gullo, Bill Lockwood's wife, Jeannie Levesque, Lisa Bryan, and Sam Mascow. And they will be reading from their various novels. And once again, a in-person event
Yeah,
that
that's
you can
great.
go to. So
And our local talent that we never realized that we have.
yeah.
Because Bill did a novel about the French resistance during World War II. and
my
it's
guess is that
really-
might be the ones that they're going to read from.
Yeah,
I'm not
and
sure.
it's quite fascinating. It's really good.
So yeah, so go out and see them, and then I have asked them if they wanted to come on the show and talk about more about what they're
good,
doing. So hopefully we'll be able to coordinate with them.
Great.
There, I
But
am
let's get to
done.
Gary. How's it going, Gary?
Well, today,
Well, today.
You had to qualify that.
Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the island or do you want to start with the ARPA project?
yeah, let's start with the ARPA project.
Yeah.
So
Because
more of an
that's
update.
really there's a lot of money coming to town, and you have to find a way to divvy it all up, right?
Well, the boards do.
Yeah, but you're their spokesman today.
Right. So there's a project team that's been working a lot behind the scenes, and that team is Peter Golick, the Select Board Chair, Deb Wright, the Bellows Falls Trustees Chair, Amy Howlett, the Saxons River Trustees Chair, Scott Pickup, Scott Pickup Municipal Manager, Betsy Thurston, who's the Downtown Director,
50%, yeah.
and myself, and the consultants, Camoin Associates. And so we had the first public engagement session. It was great. Close to 50 people live, maybe 6 to 8 on Zoom. and basically talked about the community vision we had developed with the Vermont Council on Rural Development. And that was pre-pandemic, so things are very different now. And it was good to hear people either reaffirm the vision, but also identify a couple of things missing. That there's things we've learned during pandemic. So at this point, the follow-up meeting's April 13th, Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. And the project team has been working with the projects to do a few things, sort them by village.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically the bunch of projects that will be determined by the Saxons River Village Board, some that will be determined by the Rockingham Select Board, and some by the Bellows Falls trustees. So the groups on April 13th will be split into those three groups by geography. And then the projects are organized into the vision areas that were determined.
So the money is going to be divided strictly geographically, or are there some projects that might affect all three towns?
Yes, certainly,
and
yeah.
maybe get a cut from each one.
Yes. So the ones that are listed as impacting Saxons River and Rockingham and Bellows Falls are listed in all three groups.
Oh, okay.
So all three
Okay.
groups will be
makes
discussing.
sense.
Or if there's just two of them, if it's like just Bellows Falls and Rockingham, and it's not impacting Saxons River, then we'll go to those two, and so on.
That's going to be kind of hard to a certain extent to differentiate because or not. Were they pretty clear? Were they pretty clear cut or?
Yeah. So a number of things. One, based on what people. So the project submitters said, we think this project impacts, or we're intending it to impact.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Which
Right,
one?
right,
And so we're starting at that point. The development office and the planning office are going through all the projects and assessing if they're aligned with the town plan and which chapters and policies of the town plan. The project team is looking at them for the amount of investment, and is it a short-term project, right? Up to a year. Is it to implement, right? To complete? Is it a 1 to 3 year project, medium term, or is it 3 to 10 years and longer? So they'll be broken out by that, by town plan alignment, and the consultants will have them assessed by project readiness. Are these projects ready to go? So if there's ARPA funds that are allocated towards them, they'll be ready to go. So all of this work will go on, and the materials that the groups get on April 13th will be easy to understand at a glance, color-coded, sorted, with just a few criteria that really help understand their impact. And so the goal is for this meeting to really focus down and come out with some solid rankings. So the groups there are then going to take the report outs and rate all the projects.
Now, is there any point that the person submitting a project gets to do like a 1-minute elevator pitch description of their project, or part and parcel, was there enough description in their submissions?
So there is enough description in the submissions, and the ones that aren't, there's going to be some reach out to the submissions and ask the questions on them. And so when we're in the groups that are broken down, like I think all of the project submitters are at the live meeting.
I was there, and I think there was a pretty good cross section. Yeah.
So ideally, they're in their groups, and when they're being rated, can speak to them.
Okay.
And then I guess so just backing up a little, I skipped the overview. That's always good to include, which most of the pandemic relief funds have been, get this money out there so you spend it quick. It's by the time it gets from the feds to the state government, they put it into a program, have an application, choose it. The deadline's coming up. You got to get that money spent, and it was designed to get dollars into the community quickly. This is slow money, total the opposite. The legislation, they want it to be thoughtful, so much so that they put in provisions about looking for community input, trying to get community consensus on items, having until 2024 to even decide what to spend it on.
Oh, nice.
So while the money's available now and could be spent, I think the boards have done a great job by engaging, participating, setting up this process,
Right.
being the project team, and not just spending it, because they're hitting
Right.
priorities all
Because
the
this is
time.
an
Right,
opportunity
right.
to make a real impact.
Yes, long
And
term.
it's sort of a better idea to be deliberative about that as opposed to reactive.
Yes.
Right. Because it's kind of once in a lifetime, that's how I've heard it pitched. It's like
Yeah.
once in a lifetime money. Like it's not probably ever going to come around
Right.
again.
Yes.
Yeah.
I heard the same, like once in a generation. Same,
Yeah,
Same
yeah,
concept. I
Yeah.
heard it described. And then the other piece is that the community input is important. A lot of attention, and we know our elected officials pay attention to that. At the same time, they want to be really clear so that there's not false expectations that it is, according to the legislation, that the law, it is the boards that decide how to
Right,
spend their pots
right.
of money. And last time, I think we had asked what the amounts are. I didn't have the exact amounts with me, but so the Bellows Falls Village has $886,356. The town of Rockingham has $441,534,000, and Saxons River has $148,239,000.
Nice.
And so the boards will make those determinations for how they're spent.
No, I think it's good. I think because not every town has chosen to do the public input. I mean, it makes a ton of more work for y'all, but in the long run, then if you have the public input and the public has a say, I think it's the better path,
Right.
no matter what. Yeah.
And as Scott pointed out at the tri-board meeting last night, there will be there's a lot of compliance that goes along with reporting on the ARPA funds. So you need real clear, not only the accounting and bookkeeping, but the documentation of the public process. How did you go about it, and what went into it? So we feel that for all of our Rockingham, Saxons River, Bellows Falls, we'll be in good shape there.
Good.
We're doing a really
Great.
good job with it.
What's just off the cuff, without a lot of detail, but what's the range of the projects? I mean, are there some really, really tiny, like mom and pop projects, and then others that are major, or?
There are. So just for I don't have those pieces with me, but
Yeah, that's why I'm only asking.
Yes, yeah. So the six areas like workforce development, infrastructure, those breakouts, and then what all the projects are and how they're sorted. Those will be on the town website on April 5th. They'll be on Facebook posts. We'll send them to FACT and to Wool, so people will be able to see them a week ahead of when the
nice.
public meeting is and look at the projects and get those. And so the range is something like anything from having supporting docents at our historic sites, like the Adams Grist Mill, the Visitor Center, the Meeting House, to 10-year redeveloping a little campus of old mill projects into a heritage center with the grist mill museums and the paper mill history and the canal and the power company history and the rail history, and having the content. So there's building redevelopment, there's content development, stakeholders. there's- So yes, the range is there.
The
yes.
range is all over the map.
Yeah, and there were just under 50 projects at the first meeting, and then there were close to another 10 added.
Oh, really?
So
Good.
And is there, I know I saw an article that was posted on Facebook the other day, and I'm sure that this is taken into consideration, but sometimes when people are pitching a project, they don't take it into consideration. Sometimes you can get it built, but you have to then remember that you have to have money for
Right.
sustainability. And I'm assuming that makes it a bit of a trickier decision too, because you have to look at projects that can then sustain themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's, not to be political, but I think that's one of the things the governor has been saying is, this is once in a lifetime money. Don't make it something that you're gonna have to spend
keep
every
paying
week.
and paying and paying.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
but build something that's gonna be there, but don't put something toward a service that you're gonna have to pay for forever, because the money's not gonna be there. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Right,
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right. So we have another exciting,
Well,
I'm super
Is
excited
that it
about
for?
that.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm just
No,
excited to
great.
get to
That
the
was a
color
good job,
chart.
Don. I'm really looking forward to this, because I think it is
Yeah.
an exciting process, and I think it's bound to be good for the community.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
it is. I think, again, it's, if something good came out of all the struggle we had to go through, then this
Yeah.
is definitely it. That having, getting some things done that maybe we just couldn't have never gotten done before, so.
So, second thing we wanted to talk about today was the island project. And maybe you can introduce that and talk about the process that's gone about and that's going about to look at the island and the improvements that will be made. Or
Sure.
may be made.
Yeah, so so this this time frame, this round of what you're referring to as the Island Project. This is
Yeah, maybe I'm even referring to it wrong.
well,
but-
well, no. So there's been a number of island projects and studies, right? Since I know of since 1984. On if you talk to Ray Masuko, he's got a couple going back to 50s and 70s.
Oh, really?
wow.
Yeah. Well,
So-
I can imagine.
Yeah, so a lot of island projects. This is called the Area-Wide Plan, and it's part of the federal government's, the EPA's Brownfields program. And what it is there's, we have a lot of post-industrial, contaminated, rundown mill buildings, areas that have been tough to redevelop, right? You would never have a developer, that just never makes sense financially between
you
the
have to put so
cleanup,
much, yeah.
the old buildings, and so the area-wide plan looks at where a brownfields is often thought of as, this will tell us if there's contamination in the site and help us clean it up. But it's also, for this, the area-wide plan looks at a whole area, and for this plan, we looked at the island and the under the hill area. So you can see the to the bottom of the picture, right, to the
Right, where the yellow buildings are.
yes, just below that, to the left of the canal plant. That's called Under the Hill, and it's where a lot of the paper mills stretched along the river, and there's now a historic
Right, that's where the
riverfront
old
park and
canal
trail
ran,
system.
too,
Yes, yeah. So, what the area-wide plan does is it starts out with an environmental firm looking at the whole area and saying, okay, which areas have had treatment, the EPA treatment, which is assessing if there's contamination, testing for it, coming up with an action plan, cleaning it up. Which ones have had that? Which ones are partway through it? Which ones haven't been looked at? And they present all of that to the public, along with what's the ownership structure of the parcels, and are they owned publicly? Are they private owners? Are they nonprofit ownership? What are the constraints of the property? So they present all of that so that at a public meeting, so that the public that's engaging in this has an understanding of
Yeah,
what
sort
they're
of the
looking
ground
at.
rules,
Yeah,
yeah.
here's what we have to work with, and then they take input from that. And that meeting was last summer. I think June 10th might have been the first meeting, somewhere in that time frame, and so there was public input from that, and then the consultants took that and created some templates for a charrette, like some 5 or 6 different large maps like this, but with different orientations based on what the public had to say. Brought little blocks that people could play around, moving them around
Sure,
the island. What
yeah,
if you
yeah.
built something here or here? What would it look like? And had people rate which of the ideas, right? So they did some brainstorming, gathering. Okay, so now we know the constraints, what has to be done, what exists, what would you like to see, what can happen there. And so they took that, they took marketing information from residential and commercial industrial marketing studies, and came back with, and the scoring, of course, that the public did, and came back with this map as a draft final. And so at the last public meeting, this was gone through to kind of refine. So there were a few different final versions like this that had the maps with all of the different things. and had people pick on each one what were the most important aspects of them. So, you know, some of them had just the trails, like the trail loop, and some of them had just the buildings, right, residential buildings. Some had, you know, this is our commercial and industrial development, and so people rated all of those for, you know, each area, what would make sense, and they took you know, landscape architect principles, and this was the final version
Nice.
of it. And so you can see there are a number of trails. There's interpretive centers, cultural heritage centers. There's mixed use, where really focusing on transit-oriented development, where we have
Right,
intercity
right.
bus and train right there. So having industrial section that's in with where there's already you know, the freight trains and the Dakota Oil. We have the mixed use, which is commercial on the first floor and residential above them, which is, you know, traditional transit-oriented
Right.
development. Another residential site that's kind of a tough build, longer term, that's down on the cliffs, an old mill building that's, you know, the yellow one down in the southeast corner, right next to the power plant.
Right, right.
Cultural heritage centers, and under the hill, we already have the Adams Gristmill Museum, and some principles that have been out there for, you know, some plans from 20 years ago, some have been updated 10 years ago by Michael Singer Studios. So you have a lot of background. You have, you know, decades of history, and you have current public input and marketing studies that go into this. So then, so the best thing for me in the development office about the area-wide plans is you then have these fact sheets, which are they're really instructions for, okay, so this is all great, but how do you get it done?
I was just
What's
Yeah,
I was just gonna say
this is nice,
this
but
is like
yeah,
not
yeah,
gonna happen
yeah,
overnight.
So, right, yeah. So what makes this different? So the fact sheets, they talk about who are all the stakeholders, what the constraint, what do we need to do to address the constraints? Where's the funding going to come from? How will this change the tax base, right? So the one that's called mixed use development, just that section, right? It's one of the 6 fact sheets. Has the potential to generate another $1 million in tax revenue for the town and village.
Yeah.
And then some of them, the trails. There's, so sure, just put a trail up. Well, Island's a tough area, crosses railroad tracks. So, you know, how do you go about addressing those types
Sure,
of issues? So all of those are in the fact sheets. Stakeholders, tax revenues, what's it going to cost to do this? What are the next steps? What's the anticipated time frame it's going to take? Is this, you know, a 1-year thing? Is it a 3-year? Is it a 6-year? So those fact sheets are kind of like marching orders. These are the
like
instructions for how to get each.
A layout, sort of a plan, like a
Yeah,
timeline.
exactly.
almost.
Yeah. Yep.
This,
Exactly.
so generally, again, I ask these questions,
Yeah,
and I
sure.
don't want you to feel like you're put on the spot. But what is the time frame? Are we talking 15 years?
So that's a really good question. There are aspects of it that will certainly take 15 years.
Yeah.
There's some that could be completed in 2 years' time.
Wow. Like, one of the things that jumps out at me is the orientation of the new bridge. And because I had
Yeah.
heard it, and I'd heard it
Yes.
talk, but seeing it here, it makes so much more sense than it did. Because I was sort of thinking it was going to be something like down in the middle of sticking in. But that's really a nice sweep, and it comes in really well.
And it blends in with the top of Canal
Yeah,
Street right
exactly,
in the.
yeah. And so that alone is a good thing to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess those are because I'm thinking several questions came up while you were talking. One would be, you talk about the amount of potential new tax revenue, but is that coupled with potential population growth? Or is that, because one of the things I could see is
Interesting,
if you could
yeah.
increase tax revenue without increasing population, we would have a
The
net
cost factor,
a
right?
net reduction in taxes, which everybody complains about. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know anyone in Bellows Falls that doesn't. I don't know
Yeah.
anyone anywhere that doesn't complain about taxes.
So let's see. Every town meeting that I've been to, and I've been going to them since being with the transit company,
Sure,
interest in the, so probably 15 years. There's always, our taxes are going up. It makes it hard. There's we have to make cuts to reduce taxes. But, and every time you're cutting, it shrinks
Right,
things.
right.
And when you look at the grand list, the number of buildings that we've lost, especially commercial buildings,
Right,
industrial
right.
buildings, all of that tax revenue just makes it more
Yeah, it
expensive
makes
for
it
everyone
for-
else.
for the
So
people.
the real estate, putting things back into the grand list
Oh, okay,
is
sorry.
what's really going to turn that
Yeah,
around.
that's what I was-
right?
yeah.
And make things more robust. You do, with population growth, you do have more costs, but not nearly as much as you can add with the
Right.
with the
But
tax
you're
revenue,
getting
'cause the
to my
services
point.
are already
It's like,
there.
it's,
Yes.
you're increasing commercial building, not necessarily residential buildings, so you're going to be, basically increasing the grand list without so much increasing
Well,
The
so
usage,
service
right?
costs
so,
on
so
the
not
outside.
exactly. The residential piece is really important. So the past couple of years, maybe even 3 years, one of the biggest discussions in economic development statewide and really in all rural areas is the lack of housing,
Right.
the loss of population to fill jobs. You look at jobs, there's so many unfilled jobs, and people call they want to move here to take the jobs. They can't find housing.
Right.
It's not just
Yeah,
Bellsville
no,
Rockingham, it's
it's everywhere.
everywhere.
It's
So
everywhere.
this helps address that. So
Yeah.
it addresses a number of problems. It has a lot of thought behind
point.
it from a lot of experts, and so we feel really good about it.
We have about.
I know. 'cause
I know.
I know. We
I'm
always
so
do. We got
fascinated.
going.
You're gonna have to come back
I
again,
know,
Gary.
'cause this
In
is
another month or so. I would really hope you would come
I
back
would
because
increase. Is this on the town website? Can people look
So
at
it's
it?
not. It's a draft still.
Okay.
But we will have within a month. We'll have the final.
Okay.
So just the environmental team has a couple of pieces. The environmental team has to vet these pieces. It's a couple of parts to make sure
Okay.
that we're not putting out information that's going to say, "Oops, sorry."
Right. Right. That
And
makes
then,
total sense.
Yeah, so I'd say within a month's time, we'll have a final. It'll be on the website. It'll be
Nice.
presented at a joint boards meeting. Happy to present it here
That's
for your
great.
viewers.
Yeah, because we really didn't
yeah.
get to get into it too in depth.
Yes.
So, oops.
thank you
More-
so much
more
for coming on.
information?
We're
There you go.
we're just about going out. I think he's giving us information so that if you want to find out more, there's the website. But I think we're just about done for right now.
And
We'll see you next week.
Thanks,
Bye,
community.
Rockingham.
Thanks for
Thanks
thanks
again,
for having
Gary.
me here. Happy to participate. Yeah.
Yeah, that went quick.
Local news, politics, business, sports, arts, music.